hear me okay? All right, wonderful. I love that song. When I was thinking about being here and talking about roots, thought back to my childhood, and I remembered, I'm going to age myself here, I remembered dancing around to my parents' records and 8 tracks, and my favorite record that I danced around to was Barry Manilow. But looks like you made it would not be a good song to walk up here to. So I did Let the Sun Shine In because it just makes me happy. So I'm here to talk about core competency. And I wanted to start out by sharing a little bit about trees. So, did you know that trees spread out up to 2 to 3 times the radius of their canopy? So, what does that mean? It means that underground, trees are much bigger than what you see, at least much wider than what you see above ground. And that is the same, I think, for people. There's a lot that lies beneath the surface, and we really have to dig deeper to figure out what it is that we are best at. And the reason that I want to talk about this today, I'm going to talk about the nuts and bolts. So you've heard a lot about finding your purpose. You've heard about, from Jessica, she talked about finding your superpower. Well, it's not that easy. And I actually got it wrong for over 20 years, and I'm still figuring it out, I'll be honest with you. So I have some very practical ways to help you kind of dig that out, to figure out what really is your superpower. Because when you operate in a mismatch, you're actually much less effective. Okay, so I have definitely had lots of mismatches over the years. I've made lots of mistakes, and I'm here to tell you about all of them so that you can hopefully not make the same mistakes that I made. To find your core competency, I'm going to lay out for you 3 steps. First, you need to figure out what are your strengths and your skills. And that's not always obvious to us because I think it was Terry who said yesterday, it's those things that we do in our sleep, and sometimes we don't even recognize them, right? They're so obvious to us that we don't recognize them as strengths. So I'm going to talk about some ways to really figure those out. We're going to talk about how do you figure out your values and how do you find an organization that matches those values. And I'm not just talking about ethics. I'm talking about what you really care about in your work. And then what is your working style? You're going to take all that and you're going to figure out the unique contribution that you make to the world. Because if you don't offer that unique contribution, guess what? Nobody else will. And so then we have a gap. Right? And so we don't want a gap. The world needs you to be uniquely you. The world needs you to operate in your superpower. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So a little bit about myself. This is a picture from an 80s party we did for my husband's 50th birthday. I'm an 80s kid, so I love the 80s. I've been an entrepreneur since 1997. In 1997, I founded a software company called Innovative Computer Solutions. I made, for those geeks out there that can know what I'm talking about, I made a compiled Microsoft Access executable that installed on multiple floppy disks, and I shipped it all over Ohio for crime victim services organizations. So it was a very niche product. And then I later became a computer programmer. I'm also a professor of business. I love to read, I love to write and create stuff. I love coffee, I like coding, and traveling. All right, so self-leadership. Self-leadership requires first understanding your strengths, values, and assets, and then finding the opportunities that match them. So this comes from someone smarter than me. Peter Drucker, you might have heard of him. He was a thought leader in business leadership for many decades. And he observed the best operating companies, the best operating executives, and he wrote a lot about self-leadership. And you might think that, well, that's obvious, right? But actually, finding those opportunities that match is a lot harder than you think, okay? So I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So when I graduated from college, I wanted to be a nonprofit manager. I thought I wanted to run nonprofits. However, it was in the mid-90s, and I could not find anyone to give me a job running a nonprofit. So I took the best job that I could find, and that was to be a computer programmer in Indianapolis, Indiana. And they were going to train me how to code in COBOL, which is a mainframe language. Um, all right, we've got a COBOLer. That's awesome. And so I remember during the interview, they said, okay, we really want you, if you come in, if you do want to work for us, we really want you to stay for 2 years. And I thought, okay, well, I said, I will stay for 2 years as long as I'm not bored. So I knew that much about myself. I knew that I easily got bored, and I could not stay in a boring job for that long, right? So I stuck it out, and I made it for a year. And then I realized I was too bored, I had to leave. And my grandma was very sad because she was so excited about my 150% 401k matching. But I walked away from the 401k matching to get a temp job. So my husband and I, we moved back home. I was back to making minimum wage and was working here in Lima. And at one point, one of the temp jobs landed me at an HR company. So I was working at the HR company. I was the marketing coordinator, and I really got sick of faxing reports. Okay, so we're talking the 90s, right? So we would run interviews for companies, and then we would fax the reports to them every day. And so that was one of my jobs. And I was like, I am sick of faxing these reports. This is ridiculous. So I had gotten something in the mail from Microsoft, and it said, hey, you can code a web application using this free software. I was like, sure, I'll try it out. So I sat down and I coded an application over a few months. And that application became called My Staffing Pro. And in fact, when I wrote My Staffing Pro, and it was just really to help us, right? Because now the clients could get their own data from the internet instead of needing me to fax them their data. We realized that this was an application we could sell. So we took My Staffing Pro and we started a new company with it. And so I worked at that new company. And within a few years, we were processing millions of applications for companies. And so I was there, and I thought, wow, this is really fitting my strengths, right? I'm a systems builder. I love building systems, taught myself how to build web applications, and I thought, I'm really operating in my strengths, but I was still unsatisfied. Okay, so when I was at the insurance company in Indianapolis, I was bored because one of my values is creativity, autonomy, and flexibility. Insurance companies, what do they value? Stability, right? Revenue. They have great salaries and benefits, but we had a values mismatch. My strengths matched the job. I was a good coder, but I did not value their values, right? It wasn't the kind of work that I wanted to do. It wasn't the kind of atmosphere I wanted to work at. So now I was at a tech startup, had the flexibility, the autonomy. It was aligned to my strengths, but something was still missing. I still had a value. One of my strongest values with work is that I want to do something for the greater good. That's, for whatever reason, that's the way I've been made, and that's one of my values. And so we were doing a lot of good things, but I didn't feel that connection to the greater good. It wasn't enough of a connection for me. So after a few years leading the software team, I convinced my parents and my husband to found a coffee shop. So we created the Meeting Place on Market in 2003. It was the first coffee shop in Lima. There was actually, to be honest, there was a coffee shop, but it had closed. So at that time, it was the only coffee shop in Lima. And I thought, okay, this is my thing, right? I'm doing something for the greater good. We put it downtown because I cared about economic development. I really wanted to help contribute to downtown development like John Hafey talked about. And so I thought, this is really aligning with the greater good. I could use my strengths of being innovative. I could be flexible. I'm building systems. This is great. All right, so still wasn't a match. So I'm going to tell you more about that in a little bit. But before I tell you why I still hadn't found my match, I want to tell you how to figure it out for yourself, okay? So how do you figure out your strengths and skills? There's 3 steps that you want to follow. And I actually have a worksheet on your table. It's kind of blue about how to find your core competency. So if not all the tables might not have enough copies, so you might have to like kind of share with other tables. When I'm brainstorming, I like to use pen and paper, but you can also scan the QR card, and I see the QR code is probably cut off maybe for you guys, but it is on that paper if you want to get the digital version, okay? And that also, the digital link also has my PowerPoint and step-by-step guide to all of those things that I'm talking about today. Okay, so you can download it from my website. So these are the steps that I'm going to go through with you, and I want you to think about your strengths, your values. I want to use this as like a brainstorming exercise. Okay. So to do the reflected best self activity, this actually comes from researchers who did a lot of work. Right. I'm actually studying for my PhD in organizational leadership right now. I love research. It is actually really fun for me. Don't feel sorry for me. I actually love writing research papers, which I know is super weird. But anyways, this comes out of research, so this isn't just made up, right? It is proven to help you find your strengths. And the way you do it is you make a list of people who know you best, your friends, your family. You can ask your mom and dad. You can ask your brothers and sisters, your coworkers. Get at least like 15 to 20 people that know you best. Then you're going to send them an email and say, hey, when did you see me at my best? And if you go to my website, I actually have a template that you can just cut and paste. Super easy. When I did this, it literally took me 5 minutes to email everybody, and that's all I had to do. All right, I think I had to text my brothers to say, hey, did you get the email? Could you please reply? But other than that, that was about it. So you're going to send them this email and ask them to let you know when they saw you at your best and how you operate in your best self, what strengths that you've exhibited. So that's super easy, right? People love to tell people good things. You don't need any negative feedback, all right? And then I want you to, once you start getting that feedback in, it's going to be in a variety of formats. Some of you are going to get like paragraphs from your friends. Your brothers are going to email you 1 sentence or 2 words. And you're going to want to search for common themes. So what I did is I put them in a spreadsheet and then did the keyword thing. If that's not your thing, do it however you want, right? So you look for the common themes in the feedback that you got. Then you're going to create a self-portrait about how you operate at your best, okay? And then you're going to create a plan to build on those strengths. So when I did this, I realized I need to start things. I hate maintaining things. Is anybody else like that? Like, okay, good, yes. I literally hate maintaining things. So when I teach at the university, it can be a struggle because I'm teaching classes over and over again. So I'm like, what can I do about this, right? So I've decided, out of this self-portrait and this exercise, I decided to start an entrepreneurship program at the university. That was one way that I thought, okay, then I can operate out of my strengths. I could be a mentor, help students launch their own businesses, etc. So it was one thing that I could do. I could take a job that wasn't like a complete fit for myself and kind of tweak it so it kind of fit better with my strengths. Alrighty. And here's some of the lists that came out. My strengths are innovation, leading, decision-making. I'm calm in chaos. And I like to seek meaning. I want that greater good. So coffee shop founder meets a lot of those strengths. So you can see that. Coffee shop founder does not fit some of the things that I don't like to do. If you're running a coffee shop, you need to supervise people. Absolutely hate supervising. I love leading. I hate supervising. I don't like small talk. I want to talk to you about important things. And I will do small talk because that's good manners. But I honestly don't like it. And I like a lot of alone time. As a coffee shop manager, not a lot of alone time. I don't like appealing to the masses. I've never been popular. I was not the popular kid. And I don't like competing with big brands. I don't have that competitive spirit. When I played volleyball in high school, my dad was always like, "It's the mental game." I'm like, "I'm just having fun right now. Like, dude, leave me alone." So I don't want to compete with the big brands. And in the coffee business, there's a lot of big brands, right? When we started, like I said, there was one coffee shop. Now we have Starbucks, Big B, we've got Winans, we've got like 6 other local coffee shops. Not my thing, okay? I just want to kind of like be there and have a happy place for people to come to. All right. So I've been exploring, I've been thinking about like, well, what could I do with my business to maybe get it fit my strengths a little bit better? So I'm really brainstorming, I'm leaning into some things. If you have good feedback as to where I should take my business next, please come talk to me over here. But I've kind of put together an outline for a new software product to help entrepreneurs manage their businesses, especially when they're working with blue-collar workers. And I define blue-collar workers as anyone who's not sitting at the computer all day. That's how I define it. I'm sure there's a different definition. So I manage a lot of people. I lead a lot of people that aren't sitting at their desk. And the software that we have for that is bad. They don't like it. I have not found anything that works. So I have a co-op, from computer science co-op this summer, working on creating software that matches my team's strengths. And perhaps that's something that we could maybe offer to others. So that's kind of the direction that I'm leaning in right now, to find a better match with my strengths. All right, so I'm telling you more about what not to do. I still haven't completely figured it out. I'm learning a lot about myself. All right. So then you want to also take assessments. Myers-Briggs, I learned a lot about myself from that. Some people do, some people don't. Something called StrengthsFinder, and there's other assessments, and I have links for those on my webpage if you go to my website. And it is jenniferbrogee.com if the QR code isn't working. And then the next thing that you should do is feedback self-analysis. And this is where you keep a journal of decisions you make. So for example, I have documented that I'm trying out creating software again. And by the way, I should mention that I might be good at it because that My Staffing Pro product that I made in 1999, it was actually acquired. And today the company is selling pretty much the same product and making $35 million a year off of it. So I'm like, maybe that's one of my strengths. Don't know. And otherwise I'm making $500,000 a year selling coffee. So still figuring that out. And that's total revenue, by the way. Okay. And I want to tell you a secret about the coffee business. I have been in it for 21 years. I've only broken even. I have not made any money. I literally work for free. All right. It's a passion project for me. I wrote a book about this, by the way, if you're interested, is like, why would this person work for free for 20 years? Well, I wrote a book about it. So if you're interested, come see me. But part of the reason is because it matches my values so well. Not necessarily my strengths, but my values. Okay? So something to share with you. But kind of embarrassing to admit, but it's out there. So note what decisions you made and those decisions that worked out. So later you'll go back and you'll see, oh, that really worked, or that did not work. Okay, so that kind of helps you to identify your strengths. Next, you need to figure out your values. So what is important to you, and does that match the organization's values? So I have on the website a card sort where you can kind of sort out what your values are. Your values must be compatible in some way. They don't have to be an exact match, but they have to somewhat match the organization in order for you to be successful. A values mismatch will make you ineffective. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how good you are, etc. If you're not having a match, you're not going to be as effective in the organization. So how do you figure this out? I've got a few steps here. There's a work values inventory. You start writing down words. You look like it's a card sort. Pick the words that you relate to the most. And so these 3 exercises are on my website. Here's some example of different values. On one hand, maybe you value flexibility in integrating your work with your family life. On the other hand, you might value a stable income and above average salary. Both of those are solid values, but they may not match, right? that may not be found in the same job, or maybe you have to keep searching until you find those. So these are examples of values, and you need to find those opportunities. You need to really be diligent to find the opportunities that match what you care about. Lastly, what is your working style? What environment brings out your best work? Is anyone in this room an introvert? Yes, okay, so am I. As an introvert, I get exhausted when I'm around people for too long. Love people, absolutely love spending time with people, but it does drain my energy and I need to step away to recharge, okay? So now that I know that about myself, how can I build that into my work? Other things to think about are how do you like to communicate? Right? How do you like to get yourself out there? You need to find the match in terms of social media and marketing where it's fitting your work style. So when I came, this is my 5th year at Social Media Week Lima, and I love it. I learn something new every time. Thank you, Jessica and team, and all the speakers who come out and share. And sometimes I walk away and I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, a live video? Not gonna do that. That sounds horrible, right? Posting and responding to people's comments on Facebook and Instagram in live mode all the time, like, I'm going to be exhausted. It's just like having small talk for hours and hours. Like, don't want to do that. But I love some of the other ideas you guys have talked about. So I could literally take the book I already wrote and follow what Judy Fox talked about and plug that into all those tools and then have content that I can share on LinkedIn. Owen Video and Carlos, I met them the other night, make amazing videos, and you can plan ahead. You don't have to do it live. You can have a script. You can have everything planned out, right? So for me, I'm a planner, and that's exciting to me. I don't want to do just off-the-cuff posts. I want to think about it and et cetera. So what fits you? What do you like to do? And of course, where's your audience? So today, Nisha is going to talk about that later, about how to find the best social media that matches you and your audience. And I think it's amazing that there's so many things out there. All right, so you take your strengths and your values and your working style, and then you figure out where those intersect with customer needs. Okay, so you have to have a customer need in order to have a viable product. Otherwise, you're volunteering your time, like I have for the last 20 years, or you're working at a charity or whatever, which is perfectly fine. But in order to really have a profitable product, you need to find that intersection where customer needs match all of those things. And I don't really have any great tricks for you to figure that out. Of course, you could do a feasibility analysis, you could do interviews with your customers, all of that kind of stuff. It's a much longer process that I have time to talk about today. But finding out where that matches gets you to your core competency. And then looking at your stories in the past of when you were really successful, when people really wanted your help, can also help you figure out where that happens. So I had a acquaintance come up to me. I had mentioned at a small group at church that I loved helping people with their businesses. I do that a lot when people come to me. I try to help them, especially with the technical side of things. When they're overwhelmed by setting up their e-commerce store, they're overwhelmed by an integration with another website or something like that. I like to help them with that technical stuff. And I had someone from church come up to me and like, hey, I heard you like doing this. Can you help me? And, that's kind of a sign that is something that there's a customer need out there where my weird technical coding skills and my desire for entrepreneurship kind of combines, right? So I was just so excited that she came to me, and we've been helping her set up her product that she's had for 5 years, but has never really sold it online. She does workshops, has not figured out how to do it. So we're setting up like an e-learning course for her. We're setting up digital versions, digital modules for her product, so that she doesn't have to have workshops and that's the only income that she gets from her product. So here's an example of where I brainstormed a little bit about my strengths, values, and skills, and identified a customer need. So a customer need is that entrepreneurs and leaders need inspiration and organization. I love to organize, love to make systems. Maybe I could help in that area, and so that's kind of where the software angle comes from. but this is an example of how you can take these strengths, values, skills, and tie them to a need. All right, so that's what I want you to do. I am assigning you homework. I'm a professor, so I'm allowed to do that, just so you know. So you have an assigned homework, and that is to fill out this worksheet, go to my website if you want to do it digitally, do some of the assessments, and definitely do the Strengths Finder exercise. People love to give positive feedback, so your friends and family will really be happy to share that with you. What makes you weird? That's what you need to figure out. What makes you weird, and how can your weirdness benefit others? So follow these steps and really lean in, do the hard work. Don't work for free for 20 years. Don't find the mismatch. Don't want to hide under your desk at the insurance company because you're so bored. Don't start a coffee shop because you weren't finding a match for the greater good at your job that actually paid you money. So find that match where all of those things align. All right? Thank you very much.